Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at programming our main rev limiters within our Gen 3 engine control modules. We'll find that we have, for a manual and automatic transmission, some things different within the programming we have to account for the automatic compared to the manual. So we're going to take a look at both examples here in order to accomplish raising up our main rev limiter. We're also going to be touching on the deceleration fuel cutoff because it's found in the same tab for the programming. We may need to adjust this if we've changed our idle speed. So we'll get into that a little bit later here for the training module. Let's first start off by opening up a stock equivalent file, and then we'll take a look at what we have in terms of our programming language, and I'll walk you through what you need to change in order to raise up your main rev limiter. So the first thing we're going to do here is go into our file and then open. Let's go here to our desktop. Let's go into our HPT Gen 3 Coyote Course folder. We're going to move into our sample calibration file subfolder, and then we're going to grab two different files here. We're going to open up first a manual file, and then we'll program that and get it all set up. And then we'll also open up an automatic file, and I'll talk about what those differences are for the programming. Automatic has some more tables that we need to actually adjust that are based on gear, and that's all found within the transmission control module programming. So automatic takes a little bit more legwork to get things raised up in terms of a rev limiter. It's not a big deal, but we do need to be aware of what we need to change and what's different between a manual and an automatic. Let's first take a look here at our manual file. That's the more simplistic programming, a lot easier to set up and deal with. Then we'll look at our automatic because it adds some more additional things on. Let's go ahead, open this up. So we see our files open here. Let's go up into our engine tab, and we're going to move from general over to fuel. And from fuel, we're going to move into our cutoff, deceleration fuel cutoff. So first things first, let's take a look here at our RPM limits. This is going to be what we have in terms of our programming language for our main rev limiter. Now, it looks like there's a lot of things that you could change and might need to adjust. There's actually only a few things we actually need to adjust to get the control over our engine and raise up that main rev limiter. So the first thing we need to be aware of with our Gen 3 rev limiters is that they're going to be both fuel cut based and they're going to be throttle based. So we're going to get the injectors being cut off when we're on the limiter, and our throttle is going to start to close, and it's going to try to hold us at a particular amount of torque. Now, if the injectors are shut off, technically the combustion is shut down and the engine shouldn't be making any torque or very little torque. The throttle control is going to further enhance the feel and the softness of the rev limiter. So they both work in conjunction to each other, and we'll learn some of the programming here for both. So the first thing we find here under cutoff is that we have instant fuel cutoff enable. This is going to say it's going to just shut down the injectors immediately if it meets the cutoff RPM. So this would be our actual RPM for the rev limiter. I'd recommend to leave your instant fuel cutoff to enable and not disable it. I haven't found a need to disable it, but the toggle switch is there. The cutoff RPM, this is what we need to change if we're going to be changing our rev limiter. So let's say I want to go and bump up my limiter to 7,800 here. I'm going to go and just simply change this to 7,800. The next thing we find here is our hysteresis. This is saying that in order to turn back on the injectors, we need to drop 400 RPMs below whatever the cutoff RPM is. So in this case, if the cutoff is 78 and the hysteresis RPM is 400, we have to drop below 7,400 for the injectors to turn back on again. We also have a cutoff time limit, which we typically don't need to change. This is going to be working within the hysteresis here for the injectors to turn back on. So we only need to raise our cutoff here initially. Let's drop down here a little bit. Now we have our neutral cutoff and neutral profile max. We also have a park neutral limiter here that we can set up. Typically don't change the park neutral limiter, but I do change the neutral cutoff and the neutral profile max. I'm going to change this to whatever my cutoff is at. So if that's 7,800, I'll change both of these to 7,800. Now, it's going to know that you're in neutral based on a gear position sensor with your MT82 transmission in a Mustang application. So it'll know neutral. It'll have that same limiter. So you have your main rev limiter here and your neutral limiter increased. Next, we have our transmission protection. There's a delta offset and offset disable. I usually leave both these at 0. We don't need to concern ourselves with doing anything with those. Next, we have our temperature-based cutoff. We see here that there's a base table. Notice the base table has these different numbers in the table here, so 1 through 6. Then it also has the row axes, which is engine oil temp, engine coolant temp, transmission oil temp. So we'll find, depending on which specific mode we're operating in here, that's going to be calling out the limiter. So for example, our temperatures, we see these numbers at the top of the table. The temperatures here are going to be what it calls out as the actual temperatures to enter into those various different limiter cuts. We can see here if we're in position 1, engine oil temperature can get to 300 degrees, engine coolant temperature can get to 244, our transmission oil temperature can get to 265. So we have to meet any of the conditions in order for it to turn on the limiter at 7350. So if you've raised up your rev limiter to 7800, you'd have to raise up your first row here to something like 7800 as well. So this is assuming in our position 1, we're operating within our limits here. These are all. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.